All right. Good evening. How are we doing, guys? Welcome to the class. I hope you guys had some time to bond, get to know one another, and from the looks of it, kind of helping each other out as well. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I want to welcome you guys to my home, my space. How's everyone doing tonight? We got 22 folks logged in, which is great. So you can give me a little thumbs up emoji just to kind of see how we're doing and just see how everyone's doing this evening. So apologies for the delay. It was a little crazy coming online, some technical issues, but that's okay. This is the reality of online, and we're still going to have a little bit of that happening this evening. So just wanted to do a couple of things just to make sure, but you're here. You made it, and you are in the class, so that's awesome. And for some of you guys, you actually are about to look towards applying or adding the course. Don't worry about it. Basically, the first couple of days of the course or any college class for that matter, not everybody shows up. Some people sign up thinking that they're going to be available, and then when the day comes, work, life, anything could happen. So typically they end up not showing up, dropping the class, and that means that for you guys trying to add the class, it's going to be a lot easier to add it because it just so happened that the shuffle happened, right? And I call it a shuffle because basically this always happens in the first couple of weeks of school. Everyone thinks we're going to get started like right out of the gate, and we actually go super slow because in the first couple of weeks, because we're basically trying to get situated. People are coming into the class, people are coming out, people are not showing up, people are in the process of dropping the class. Some people are just scoping it out and just seeing if I'm worth their time tonight. So hopefully I am. So everything is basically kind of in the air. But if you're trying to get in the class and you really, really, really need to get into this class, chances are good. You're looking really good for that. So hopefully that'll encourage you guys and get you guys rocking and rolling. Okay. So, so welcome. Just kind of seeing who's out there. We got 22 folks that are logged in. So welcome. And if you're having some issues with speaker sounds or anything of that sort, don't worry about it. This is being recorded. So if you can hear me, all recordings, all sessions are recorded. And then they go posted onto our Canvas page within 24 hours after the class ends. So we still want to encourage you guys to show up, right? But there is a recording just in case you want to review any information when the class is over. So everything's recorded and everything's going to be stored away and everything's going to be posted online. So if you couldn't make it to class, or if for folks that are just watching the video of the rebroadcasting of the course, don't worry. We have opportunities to be flexible and things of that sort. Okay, we still need you to show up. So that's the most important thing because we still have to engage, interact, and and you're about to step into my home life and / work situation, and I'm about to step into yours. So it's gonna be noisy, loud, kids running around, at least one for me. Lots of stories, a lot of background information, a lot of technical stuff, a lot of theory. There's just a lot of cool stuff happening in this class. So so don't even worry about it, and then we'll get you set up. If you email me regarding accommodations, I did get those emails as well. So those things are coming in slowly within the last few days. So we'll make those adjustments. If there's specific technical accommodations that you need, send me a direct message or email after class is over, and then we'll kind of go from there. Okay. But that's kind of the plan there. So tonight, just a couple of things, guys. I think what I'll start off with is about you guys. So let's actually see if we can start talking to you guys and finding out a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you're from, all that good stuff. Okay. So I'm going to post up onto the chat a quick questionnaire that talks a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you're at, what you do, and what brings you to the class. So let me go ahead and take a quick second to post that up. And we will take a few moments to just hear a little bit about who you are, where you're from, okay? If you saw the link on the Canvas page and already clicked onto it, that's great. If you don't have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. We will cover that. This class is designed for people that have zero to no knowledge about the class. And by the time you're done, you're gonna be shocked at all the stuff that you're gonna pick up. Trust me, I've done it a few years. I've done it enough to kind of know that. I don't want to say it's guaranteed, but it's looking really good for those folks that are setting up there. Okay. And hopefully family won't be like coming in and stuff like that. That's cool. If they come in your camera, that's cool. You'll see people running around my screen eventually as well. Okay, so let's start off with getting to know you guys. I see some of you guys. I don't see some of you guys. I'll hear some of you guys. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Totally fine. But let's find out a little bit about yourself. 6 words, nothing long, just brief. When you click onto the link, you're basically going to see a Google form pop up, and it's not 178 because I taught Photoshop, but I used the same Photoshop file. So it's actually there. So there you go. You already caught me. I taught Photoshop over the summer too. So if you guys are looking to learn Photoshop from me, I do it once a year in the summertime. So yay. Okay, so let's go ahead and share that link really quick. Okay, so you should see this form, okay? And on that form, it is basically a cool and quick way for me to get to know you guys. So take a moment and we will learn a little bit about you. Okay, a few facts about yourself, what's important, characteristics that define you. Just pop up the window here. Something unusual that you've done or want to do. What are you thinking about right now? Funniest Facebook or Instagram status you ever posted? Favorite class of all time? Why'd you take the class? And at the bottom, there's a little button that says, can your instructor share this with the class? So then I'll separate and filter out the two accordingly. And share a little bit about what brings you to the class, okay? And then I'll start collecting those responses there. So take a couple of minutes, okay? It's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of storytelling tonight. So, and we'll answer as much questions as possible going in, but take a moment. And when you're done, maybe type in the chat that you're done. And then once we get about 20 plus folks, we will move forward from there, okay? So if you have a cell phone, because sometimes we got a few folks that want to log in from their cell phone and try to be slick, then you could still click onto it on your mobile device and you could still technically answer it on your phone. However, I do not recommend taking this class purely on a mobile device. So we'll talk about that a little bit later for requirements, okay? So take a few moments and we'll share and learn a little bit about you, okay?
All good.
Cool.
I'm done with the form.
Okay, starting to see some posts come in slowly. Okay, take your time there, guys, and then we'll get started momentarily. And again, nothing detailed, right? This is just quick, 6 words, right? Nothing too crazy, okay? Just want to get a little background information about you, that's all. Okay, about half the class on there, so almost half. So looking good so far. Just kind of perusing some of your responses here. Cool. Oh, yeah, I see more heck no's than ever before. I don't call names out, guys. Yeah, I just kind of share it, but I will respect the but I am reading it. Okay, I'm gonna hide this here so I can set that up. So we'll have a couple of rows there. Okay, I'll give you guys about another 5 minutes there to kind of set you up. In the meantime, okay, no worries. Got a lot of heck no's, but it's okay, no worries. In the meantime, the house is mid-century modern, and it's not a house; it's a duplex. And actually, and all the decor is paintings that my wife had made. So some pieces he made over there, and we have natural lighting in the background over here, which is quite nice. And generally, you'll probably see a lot of screaming from a 5-year-old. You'll get to eventually see him at some point. He was very visible during the lockdown and the pandemic for a good year, I would say. So, and we're still online for the most part. And just out of curiosity, I'm just throwing it out there while you guys are typing away. How many guys are in person at any point, or doing an in-person class at Rio? Anybody out there? You can do a little thumbs up emoji. Curious to know if anyone's in person. Okay. And out of those in person, like, what are some of the subjects that those are? You can type it in or voice it out. Curious to know what subjects are currently back in person, because not all departments or not all are back. Okay, so yeah, so some of the handmade or the pieces that you can't do digitally, ceramics. Okay, I did not know statistics or art design was back in person, so making sense there. Okay, how many of you guys have online courses? I mean, obviously this is one. So, okay. Counseling English are back in person. Okay, and any digital online courses that you guys are taking? What courses are you guys taking that are still online? Obviously, digital illustration is one. So there, 4 online courses. Okay. Okay, so there's a good amount. Okay, so languages, my course, 3D animation is still online. Okay. Marketing, counseling. Okay. So the college is slowly transitioning back here and there in some places, depending on what the subjects are. So interesting, right? 3D animation on languages. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, great. So these are really good. All right. Psychology and this course. Okay. So interesting blend, right? Some courses in person, some are online still. It's been definitely been a ride. I will say that pretty much since the pandemic started, I've been teaching online. So through the college, and yeah, almost 2 years since I stepped back into Rio. Just weird to say, but I've been teaching more through the college during the pandemic, which was really fascinating. So good stuff. Okay, I think we're ready to start, guys. Let me go ahead and filter out the heck no's, and then we'll kind of go forward from there. And again, forgive me if I begin and you have a heck no right afterwards. Okay, very cool. And then we'll go from there. Okay, all right. So enough about you guys. Let's talk about a little bit about myself. Okay. So I have a small presentation that we'll share with you guys, and then we're gonna get some storytelling going over here. And if there's any questions, then I'll direct it towards the end there. But at any point, if you have a question, whoa, hey, where'd it go? Then you can totally type it in, and then I will do my best to answer those questions right afterwards, okay? So So we'll get that going in just a couple of seconds so that we can see what's up. Okay. All right. So you filled out that sheet. We did a little bit of the icebreaker. Whoa. That was a little loud. Sorry about that. Okay. So that was not supposed to happen. All right. So hopefully this looks pretty good on your screen. Didn't mean to scare the life out of you guys. But let's talk a little bit about this. Hopefully you can see this a little bit larger on your screen. All right, so for those that still have Facebook, my name is Miguel Almena, and hopefully the background music is not overpowering my voice. Probably not, right? Sounds like background noise or background sounds. Cool, all right, thank you. So yeah, guys, gosh, where do I start? Okay, so yes, Carl's Jr., yes, fun picture. If you were to look up my Facebook profile for those that still have a Facebook page, my name is Miguel Almena. I am pretty much 41, 42, which I know I look really good for my age. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, I am a classically trained. I am a classically trained graphic designer. And thank you, it's the genes. And my family originally comes from Puerto Rico. So I'm Puerto Rican, full blood, and born and raised here in California in Silver Lake, before it was hip and trendy. But I lived out in Silver Lake for about a good 15 years. And great time, great experience, living near downtown LA, always a lot of things going on. And then at the age of 15, my parents moved to the San Fernando Valley, and because housing was a little bit cheaper out there. And basically, I went from like high school until college in Northridge. And so if you've ever lived in the Valley, I love the Valley, but it's so different from, downtown Los Angeles, right? So it was a little bit of a culture shock moving from one place to the other. So we lived in what you would say was an affluent community to a low income community, just to have access to housing. And so my education is a really interesting flip of like diverse to like systemic, like, almost like limitations and things like that in my education. But I was always like a learner, right? And that's how it is in my family. Like, I have an older brother who is 6 years older than me, and he is a creative as well, web designer, web developer, and does really well in San Francisco, right? And his education was LA, affluent, like high class neighborhood high school education, versus mine that was more like low income, experimental academy, right? So our educations were very different. So growing up, I immediately knew that something's up on the quality of education, but I knew what good looked like because he went to a private art school, Otis Parsons College of Art, which is like really expensive for the arts. But he was trained in that area, and I went more of the more of like the state-funded scholarship route, right? Simply because of location. So it was a really cool, and then so you guys built it. So yeah, it's a really amazing time, and basically, growing up, there was some distinct differences in the quality of our education, but we still, and that's a whole nother conversation, right? But at the end of the day, because I had an older brother who was, first generation, go to college, I ended up following in his footsteps. And a lot of you guys kind of fit that profile, right? Like, you're the first to go to college, or you're in college right now because someone in your family is in college or went to college, and you're following in a similar path, right? I'm the same way. I felt the same way, and I did the same thing. So when he pursued creative, I did the exact same thing and pursued creative as well. And his name is Antonio. We call him Coqui because his hair was cocorizo, we say, and which is white hair, and not because he sounds like a frog, because in Puerto Rico we have a little coqui, and but that's what we call him. And then I have a half sister that lives on the island. Her name is Solange, and she is, born and raised, never really left the island. And so she's there. And essentially, my family's lived in California, ever since I was born, right? So I was the first in the family to be born in LA. So, but our family would always travel back to the island. I am fully bilingual, so I do speak Spanish. There, a little bit of the accent. I flip the two here and there, depending. So that's great, So I can go to Spanish when I need to. ¿Qué lo que hay? ¿Cómo anda, viejo? Hey, ¿qué pasa, chico? And I can totally just be very, and it's an interesting dialect. So I can split the dialects pretty well, just living in both sides of the world. So I have a lot of energy for what I do and for the topics, and I kind of bring that into the work that I do. And who knows, if we ever run paths along some place and you buy it or something like that, then you can hear me talk Spanish all night. I'm married. As well. I'll show you a picture of her in just a quick second because I want to make sure I give her the proper time and honoring. I went to Cal State Northridge and I studied fine arts with a concentration in graphic design. So I actually have a BA, and so half of my college education was traditional art and then shifted towards graphic design or as a concentration. And so I'm a classically trained graphic designer, but my work experience is started there and has moved from there to like 3D, industrial, some architecture, and now like moving into engineering in some regard too. So, but it all starts with design and design thinking methodologies, and it's been really an interesting experience from that part. Other things that I enjoy. I like a lot of things tech related, so web design, web 2.0, 3.0, music, sonic branding, and just EDM and salsa and a lot of eclectic music. When it becomes eclectic, if you listen to that station, that's kind of like the flow for me. But on weekends, I listen to a lot of salsa, right? Alma del Barrio and just like merengue and all that stuff. So, and then during the week, I just go English, right? And I just listen to a lot of English EDM and everything 80s. So it's an interesting brand, but I kind of go between two worlds on a regular. And so that's kind of how I flow, and that's a little bit about me there. Okay. I do live in the Whittier area. I actually live 10 minutes away from Rio Hondo. So I live in Whittier, and I moved out here when I married this. We gotta fix that. Yes, I married this lovely lady, and so last Thursday was our 9-year wedding anniversary. So we've been married for 9 years, and together for like almost 20, so like 18 years. So I took a really long time. Thank you. I took a really long time to pop the question, but she's amazing, and she's also a counselor. She's actually a counselor at Rio Hondo, and so it was because of her that I actually got into teaching. Because after I graduated college, and I started working in the private sector, and from the private sector, my wife pursued counseling with an interest in art, but she didn't want to go into the design and art because, in her opinion, it wasn't stable work, and so she decided to go with a college counseling position and have a hobby for art, right? And for some of you guys, that might be the thing, right? You might be pursuing a degree in another field, but this is the hobby class. And for you guys, it's the opposite, like me, like this is the career class, and you're doing other things as hobbies. So there's two worlds, but I know those two worlds very, very well because my wife is one and I'm the other. So that's kind of how it flows. She's actually a better artist than I am, and can outdraw me any day. But we still have some interesting conversations and appreciation for the arts. So that's kind of an interesting kind of dynamic there. Okay, I'm gonna hope this doesn't make noise. Okay, I'm going to mute the background music. How about that? So let's go ahead and take out the shared computer sign there. Okay, that should help, and I'll hear it, but you guys won't hear it. Okay, and then we'll pause it there. Okay. So that's our wedding day. Now the person on the left is her twin sister. So my wife is a twin, and it's an interesting world. And she will kill me if I showed you this picture, because it's not the most becoming of pictures. But she is a twin, and so it is true. When there's one, the other one is not too far behind. So most of my life, I don't want to say I dated twins, but that sounds weird. But it was always like the three of us in some regard, right? Because twins are so close that they kind of, they don't share everything, but they do tend to kind of like, do a lot of activities together and everything of that sort. So Susie is also a high school counselor, and she's worked at Rio at some points here and there as well. So amazing artist as well. So just throwing it out there. Okay. And let's see, no background music, right? Okay. It's going to play by lower my volume. And so, yeah. And so essentially, I like to show this image because there is, design can go a lot of different directions. Like I designed the logo for our wedding, right? I designed the invitations for it and put that together, and it was really great. So the logo, the lettering, the layout, design is really awesome because you can actually go a lot of different directions with it, right? Like design your invitations. That's kind of like a thing. If you're a designer, it's kind of like you have to design your own invites because people just want to know what you want to create, right? And oftentimes people will ask you to do the same too. Or do other things, but I like to show this. The logo is a M and V, so it's an M, but if you look closely, it's a V embedded into the M. So her name is Vanessa, my name is Miguel, so it's M and V together. Oh, so that's kind of how it flows there, right? Next year we're gonna crack that bottle in the middle. That's the 10-year bottle, and I like to be very creative with a lot of the things that we do. So essentially, the one bottle on the left, we opened it 5 years. So on our wedding, basically people leave messages and we're going to read them in 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, and 50 years. So I should have put 15 because the next one after 10 is 25. And that's the next one. So next year is the 10-year and we read the messages. It's a cool little thing and it really keeps things kind of interesting and fresh. That's our son. He's only one in that age, but his name is Elias. Congratulations there. He is now 5 and he's running around. He's with mom right now at the park because mom wanted to give me a little bit of time to say hi to the class and not be interrupted. So we will probably see more screens and green screens because I'm moving around different places around the house and whatnot. But yeah, he's great. He's a pretty smart and creative child. It's always the curiosity of whether or not your children are going to be. Thank you. You're always wondering if your children are a reflection of you and your talents, and I would say yes. I think he's very funny. He's very creative and quite determined, much like his parents. And so it can be good and it can be a challenge, and it's an enjoyable part of our lives. One child only, no more kids. That's more of a statement than a fact. Yeah, that's like a fact almost. I don't know. I'm good with one. And if you have more than one child, God bless you guys. It is a lot of work to do just one. But what is it that I designed for? Ooh, okay. All right, Louis. We're gonna help you out there, bro. So what do I design? Okay, there's a lot of things that I've designed in the past. So I'm gonna show you some of the work. I used to work for the Walt Disney Company, believe it or not. I used to be part of Disney Consumer Products, and not always, but it's living in California, in Southern California, the entertainment field is big. And oftentimes people forget that companies, movies, films, and entertainment, they make money. Let's just say Disney. Disney makes money in a lot of different ways, right? They make money off their films, streaming services. When you watch, there's a percentage that goes to them. They make money off the parks. When you go to the park, there's a percentage that goes to them too. And they make money off the souvenirs that you buy or products or merchandise. And so that is where I sort of ended up, oddly enough. There was an increase in the early 2000s, films and things like that. And the business and the company was booming and they couldn't find enough designers to design products. So I got a call from a company that did outside work for Disney. I worked for them for a few years, and then I eventually ended up working in Disney because I knew the systems from the outside. But at the end of the day, this merchandising, consumer products is a very, very big business. And wherever there is entertainment, there's always stuff people want to buy from the movie. And today it's now streaming services, right? Like Netflix has their own product department that launched maybe like less than 4 or 5 years ago. So they also have designers that develop product for all their original shows. And so does Amazon and all these companies. So there's money to be made in it. And I did it for Disney, and I felt that that was a really huge opportunity. Fairies, Mickey Mouse. I still have that Mickey Mouse chair. That was my first chair that got into FAO Schwartz. So that was cool. And that was a fun project. I still have that original sample. It's sitting in my son's room. I didn't know we were gonna have kids, but I knew we were gonna have a child, and we were gonna give him or her that chair. And so now he uses it. So it's sort of interesting result. Fairies, as your designer, you need to know how to work with all brands, right? All genders. So you want to know how to work with male, female, everything in between and across the spectrum, right? So, I did princess, I worked on fairies, and yes, I worked in furniture for a time, and that was something that I ended up doing. So I started off in graphics and ended up developing the 2-dimensional graphics for the products. So you see how that kind of one led to the other, right? They needed designers to design graphics for the panels, and then it just turned into like multiple panels for a 3-dimensional product, and then eventually you're designing 3-dimensional products. So it sort of ended up falling into place. This one is a Hannah Montana or a chair. If you have Disney Plus, that show, if you're old enough to remember, that's Miley Cyrus. If you look at the last season, I never watched the show. I caught it here and there. And yeah, I saw the chair. So if you look at the last season, like one of the few episodes in her room, we designed this chair and it got sold in some stores, and it's there. And I never thought it would end up on a platform. But this is what you call a lifestyle piece. Lifestyle means it's like it doesn't show the person, but it's a reflection of their lifestyle. So things related to them, right? So if you look inside the patterns, there's like little tiny musical notes and instruments and things of that sort that reflect the character, but it's not the character per se, right? And so design has a really cool way of kind of blending the obvious, like what you see is what you get, versus like the abstract, right? Like something is a hint or a symbol of that identity, person, whoever it is, right? Warner Brothers, did some work for Warner Brothers as well. Toy Story, right? One of the top grossing films still of all time for Disney, right? These were really cool projects. These were exciting projects to work on. And, I felt very fortunate to be a part of this and kind of fit into that, right? Because I started out, working in not so exciting stuff, dental parts. One of the first jobs I did was design catalogs for dental parts in college. Okay, that's cool. Paid the bills, but I eventually moved into product design and consumer products, and that was more interesting to me and more exciting. And I actually, was alive at the end of my workday, and that was cool, right? Mickey chair, right? This actually got sold in a lot of stores, Toys R Us, Costco, still floating around out there, right? And people always ask that question, like, well, what did you do to get to this position? Like, how did you end up where you are in that path? Well, I did the first thing. I kind of was interested in high school, so I did take some classes in high school. I don't know if anyone's dual enrollment out there, but if you are, you can give me a little thumbs up emoji, because there are some students out there that are actually taking college classes at night to fulfill their requirements in college so that they get a 2-year head start. And so, for those of us that are parents, technically these courses could fall in dual enrollment. And so high schoolers can take this class and still get college credit and not have to pay anything because it's technically free by the school, right? So I did that. I actually took high school classes, and back then it was photography and like art and some computer science, because the computer was kind of gaining traction those years. After that, I said, okay, I took a tour of the college, and that tour led me to go to Cal State Northridge. And I never knew that Cal State Northridge was considered probably one of the best schools for students of color, right? It was considered better for students of color than a Harvard or a Yale, right? Because the cultural the diversity was so good that students actually finished because they didn't feel so, isolated in some regards. And I'm not saying all schools isolate, but there was a little bit more diversity and it was a little bit more accepting, and there was a higher success rate for graduates. So I felt very fortunate to land there, and I graduated in 2007, right? Right before I graduated, my professor, right, who my Vietnamese dean of the college at the time, Dave Moon, says, you need to start getting an internship. You need to start working before you graduate from college. You don't want to start having little to no experience. I'm like, okay, what do I do? It's like, we'll get an internship. I know someone. And that's another thing about this field, about this world of design. Somebody knows someone. It's very network based, right? It's very relationship oriented. And I'm a shy person. I'm an introvert. So Dave was the connector that connected me to other people. So he was the guy that was allowing me to connect to others. I know someone. So maybe you're an introvert, right? Like me, and maybe this is a little difficult for you to share stuff. If you know someone who is a connector, that's how you can get some success and traction in your career. So a little tip there, right? Like whoever is the talkative one in the group, then find the one that is connected to all the people in your world of design, and get to know that one person really good, and they'll talk about you to other people, right? Hey, you should talk to this person. You should talk to that person. I know someone that does design. You should call him. You should call her. And I found a lot of opportunity doing in that format, just by accident. And Loungefly is, it's hard to kind of quantify it, but if you've heard of them before, if you've ever walked into Disney stores and seen those little Disney backpacks with all the characters, and the backpack looks like the character, right? That is where I worked. So we actually were the first to kind of develop those licensed bags, or licensed tote bags and backpacks years ago, right? And we made it into a thing, and we made it affordable. And when the backpack came out, it kind of made the company explode, right? And so it was a good one. Actually, I should just show you, because we have computers, right? And I worked there, and I actually worked at the company. Let me show you. At Loungefly, the first 5 years after it launched. So I actually got to get the experience of, and let me move that screen out of the way. I got to get that experience of working at a startup very, very, very early on, right? So these backpacks that you see there, no, I don't want to have a brand there. So like the Dieline backpacks, right? Or these kind of like licensed bags, you probably have seen them around at some point. Mostly the backpacks is what everyone knows for the most part. If you've ever seen these bags, yeah, we were accessories, and then we moved into t-shirts, and then our art director said, you know what, we should really make like a bag, and make like a high-end bag. And what would it look like if we took our t-shirt graphics and put it on a really cool high-end bag with like some really nice materials? And then from there, we hit our niche, right? We discovered that people actually wanted high-end, or actually affordable luxury is what it's called now. Affordable luxury accessories. They didn't want to spend $250 on a bag like the celebs did, but hey, it looked like it for $60. Why not? And so we hit this mark, and we started selling at Hot Topic, and eventually Disney called. And then, 23 something years later, the business gets sold for like 20 plus million or so. I'm guesstimating like anywhere between 20 to 30 million. And acquisition from Funko, which is another bigger company that does licensed bobbleheads that is like really big, right? So that's where I worked, and I got to see from the very bottom what it takes to get a company out of the ground to sell product, and not only any product, but high quality products using licensed products and goods and original art. So we had our private label. I got to see what it looked like to design art from a private brand or private label perspective. So like, Loungefly does a lot of skulls, sugar skulls, and things related to that. So that was a lot of the private label, which since I guess has transitioned out. But if you've ever seen anything that's scully, or like in that same vector art, that was us back then. And everything was done in Adobe Illustrator. Like rarely did we mess with Photoshop. So everything we did was all in Illustrator. That's why I kind of like liked Illustrator after I started in the field. I never used Illustrator. I was more into Photoshop. And this company showed me what I could do with Illustrator on a whole nother level. And I was like, this is actually better, if not easier, than maybe Photoshop, right? It's like, yeah, if you actually work some of these tricks and techniques that you guys will learn in this class, then why not? So, but yeah, all this is vector art. So it's all done in Illustrator, even the specs, and then we send it overseas to develop. And that's how we got our pieces that we got today. So how do you do that? How do you draw that? We learned that in this class, right? So that's a little sneak peek of just a little bit of what we did in that time. So if you've ever owned a bag from Loungefly, then that's basically like the company that I got to work on. So really big believer in work experience. And I'm basically going to download everything that I've learned in that job to you guys, right? And so I'm going to give that information over to you in the coming weeks, and then you'll learn that, right? T-shirts, I did T-shirts as well, which is really cool. And you know, I like showing Employee of the Month. If you ever remember that Dane Cook film from like I don't know when, you know, that was the first like shirt that ever got into the stores, right, for me. So that was kind of like my little foot in the door, right? And you know, back then when Kanye was wearing shutter shades and it was cool, that was great, right? Yeah, Jessica Simpson. So that was like my first little, you know, second T-shirt that got into the store, right? And eventually, I as I got better at my craft, more and more of my stuff started getting sold, right? And you know, that leads to like that question, like, okay, well, you know, what is then digital design, or what is digital illustration per se? It's a hard concept to kind of grasp because design has so many definitions, right? If you look at Wikipedia, you know, it says it's communicating form and content. I like pictures. So this is a slightly philosophical, but I think design is information, yes, and colors creating a sum of its parts, right? So it's the little things that make up the bigger thing, right? I believe that design is your thinking made visual. So so yeah, it is kind of vulnerable, right? You're putting yourself out there. So I know that, right? I did it for many years. And so what is it like to show somebody your work? And I think that's your thinking made visual. So I respect that. Design is information less boring, right? You know, I was at Starbucks this morning picking up coffee, and I just looked around and I thought, man, there's so much bad advertising in the world. So design is making information less boring, right? Design is lighting up your ideas. Everyone in this class has an idea that they can contribute in each and every project. What does that look like? That has value. I'm trying to pull that out and bring out the best part of that idea, right? Is lighting that idea up is what I mean. And it's everywhere, right? As I look on my screen, I see a computer that's been designed by an engineer. I see hats that are, you know, designed by other designers, right? Clothing, apparel, homes, paintings. I mean, everything comes from someone or a group of people that work towards building a design, right? So it's everywhere. It's the touching point. But how do you design, right? What is this? What does this look like? I'll give you some of the highlights. There's a really great book by Alison Goodman, easy read, called The 7 Essentials of Graphic Design. It's not a required reading, but I totally recommend it because I really think these are some of the key pieces to design, right? Research. Design research is everything, right? Like we can't really design something without really knowing what art and design is, right? So one of the things we do in this class is that we actually look at the principles of design and we start breaking down images theoretically. So you will learn how I see design from a designer theoretical perspective, right? Not only will you get the technical skills, but you will learn how to see as designers see, right? Something that I think is very valuable and kind of not taught very well in some places, right? You know, some teachers can do it, but they can't articulate it or explain it in a way that's simple and practical. I think my value I bring to my students is that I get pretty practical and simple because we walk away with the principles, right? Typography, right? Typography is a big deal, right? What is the font style? What is the lettering? There's actually a science behind this. So when we get to logos, we actually cover typography a little bit. And if you've never taken a typography class, I totally recommend it. Typography is like the most important thing in design because the font style says something about the message as much as the message itself. It's like shoes for your outfit. That, you know, that your shoes make the outfit. Like that thing, you gotta have the right shoes if you want to look good, right? In my opinion. And so you want to, so it accentuates the message, it accentuates the outfit. So whereas the message is like the outfit, the shoes accentuate the message and bring it to another level. So typography does that. We do that in logo design. We talk about contrast, right? Contrast is probably the most fundamental, the number one thing, if not the most important thing that all design must have. The differences. People notice differences, right? Graphically. And so contrast is something you'll continue to hear me say throughout the entire theme of the class. Contrast, contrast, contrast. What is that contrast, right? Layouts, right? There is a system or a design to laying things out on a page. Grid systems, right? Is something that oftentimes doesn't really get talked about or maybe, or even referred to in classes, right? There is a hidden world behind every graphic design. And that hidden world is the architecture of the graphic called the grid system, right? And so we designers know that, we see it. It is the hidden world that we know and live in that most people feel or sense or kind of gravitate towards, but they can't really like mention it. We'll talk about that. We'll actually look at layout design and talk about focal point contrast and what does that grid system look like? And yeah, it's okay to break the system, the grid, because not everything is so structured, right? Design should be a reflection of life, and life has variety, right? And so we should have as much beauty as it is, and beauty requires variety. You all will walk away designing a logo, whether it's your own logo, a hypothetical logo, or an actual business logo. But everyone will walk away with their own logo in this class. So we don't do one of a company. I work with each and every one of you guys to build your own logos, right? So that requires a lot of one-on-one time. And that means that I will talk to each and every one of you guys on your projects. And I think that's probably one thing that's missing in the online learning world is like, my teacher does not talk to me, right? I try my best to talk to everybody in the class, and I think that's important. So if you think like, man, he's just gonna talk and not gonna notice me, no, we'll talk, right? So, to those folks that are kind of like secretly, stealthily like listening in on their phone, there will come a time where I'll be like, hey, can you share your screen with me? So you want to be ready, right? You want to be, have your computer available and ready, and we'll talk about all the computer stuff and everything like that for Adobe, okay? So you will walk away with your brand identity logo here. And we will talk about critiquing. When you're writing about design, that is a level of critique, of analysis, of breaking things down according to like first principles, right? What is the art? What is the color? What is the art element? What is the line? What is the organic shape of form? Like we really break this down. And so we will look at art and actually critique things, not only on a visual, but even on a symbolic level. It looks great, but is it appropriate, right? So we look at context big time. And of course, I bring a little bit of that Disney flavor, which is storytelling. You could call this the art of the symbol, semiotics or symbolism. Good design has symbolism in it, and symbols tell stories, whether you realize it or are aware of it or not. So a perfect example is color. Color has meaning behind it, and color is a symbol for an emotion or a feeling, right? And so that's a story. That's an element towards storytelling, but there's more. The certain shapes, certain sizes, they tell stories too. So how do I take all these elements and build a story around that? We learned that in this class. I learned that through Disney. It was like, oh, this is how we tell stories. Whether people are aware of it or not, there's little details that tell stories. Some people notice it, others don't, but it's there. They can kind of sense it and feel it. And so we talk about the details and go over details in the class, right? And there's many types of design, right? There are so many types, right? There's print design, brochures, letterheads, things of all that sort, right? So we kind of live in this world in this class. So we do cover like poster designs, we do cover logos, which typically falls under print / or web. So mostly everything we do will be print related, okay? And lettering and things that are printable, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't maybe talk briefly about web. right? Or look at an app or look at a tool and kind of look at that world a little bit, right? So even though it's not a web design class, we do kind of cover some of the basics and kind of dip into that world so that you guys get to see a little bit of it, right? User experience and apps and things like that. You know, that's sort of the next level. It's not part of the class, but I do hint at it. Today, a lot of designers are basically, there's designers that work in print, and then there's designers that have moved into web. And in Southern California, in the Santa Monica area, the new graphic designer or the futuristic graphic designer is known as your user experience, UX designer or user experience designer. And basically all they're doing is, if you really look at the curriculum of their colleges, they take like 2 years of graphic design, and then they take 2 years of web technologies. And then they basically take a science course on sociology, and they say, how do I analyze the behavior of people online and design so that I direct them with the design towards a click? So does that kind of make sense a little bit? So it's on the green table. So does that kind of make sense a little bit? So even designers today live in print, but they actually have evolved into web. And so if you're wondering, like, how do I get, you know, the best career, or how do I get, you know, the most growth for the work that I do, user experience, UX designers are kind of like this new breed of designers, of graphic designers, that bring in sociology and science and psychology into that world and analyze things from that perspective. Okay, so you get to see that as well. So that's sort of the evolution of it. So I'm always tracking that because I'm very curious to know where designers are going, and that's sort of the world that they're moving towards. 21st century designers will be designers of web. Okay, so if you guys decide to stick with this for many years, the opportunities do lie within the web world, because we all have a mobile device, and there's someone or a team that designed the interface. Everything is now is visual interfaces, right? It is a miniature poster. It is a miniature magazine layout. Basically, it's the same thing in a new format. I call Instagram the new magazine, but it's still magazine layout at the end of the day, if you break down the tools. So interesting things about that. How do I feel about that? It's progress, right? Technology is progress. How do I feel about? I would ask the question, who owns a Kodak camera? Right? Nobody, like, if you do it, like, the Kodak camera has evolved now into the mobile phone device, right? Technology will always advance arts and design. And so we live in this world as designers where the technology will always push us forward, whether we like it or not. And so that's the idea, right? And Kodak actually designed the digital camera. They actually invented the technology. They never saw the potential, which is very sad when you think about that. So imagine Kodak could have been, Xerox could have been the computer company they could have been the Apple or Mac of PC, Microsoft, or Apple companies of today. And you hear Steve Jobs say that. He says, Xerox is where I got the idea for the computer interface. Xerox could have been Apple computer. They just didn't see the potential. So yeah, evolve. We have to evolve as designers, right? And part of that evolution involves design thinking. And so design thinking is everything, right? It's so interesting. As designers, every other industry has tapped into our world and brought it into theirs. And so design thinking is basically how we as designers think and solve problems creatively. And someone, a designer, packaged it up, put it into a framework, and gave it to every business master's MBA or master's of business degree school across the world, right? And now business people are thinking like designers to solve a lot of their problems. How interesting. This is exactly what we do, right? And so we understand, we observe, we create, we have more ideas from that creation, we test out our ideas on pen, paper, computer, and if it doesn't work, we make changes. They just called it a different word that is more technical, I guess you can say. But this process is very much an artist or designer's process, right? And the person who packaged it is an industrial designer. a package designer said, hey, we can actually teach everyone how to do this. So let's do that. So it is a method of problem solving. Okay. We talk about the design of business in this class. So one of the first things we learn, I think the first lesson 3 or 4 is value-based design, what to charge, how to make money in this business. Not everyone is going to finish the class. Some people might check out sooner than later, right? For whatever reason. I think for that reason, there might be the possibility that we should talk about money up front. So I used to teach this at the end of the course. I've switched it now to the very beginning. It's one of the first 5 lessons. So the first month is all mindset. We talk about, habits. We talk about what the science says about learning nowadays. We talk about, goals. We talk about the money and how much to charge for your project. We literally will go through the numbers. We will learn negotiation and practice and negotiate as a class. But most designers are doing great work for low money because they don't know how to charge. So we look at that and we talk about value-based design. It is a game changer, right? Thousands of dollars you can get for making your projects, right? Just because you knew how to price out the client and calculate their worth, not how you feel about the project. Does that make sense? So at the end of the day, a person that has a small business is going to get priced very differently than the person that owns a business of 100 employees, right? The value of your work is very different for the $1 million business versus the $1,000 every couple of month business, right? So you got to know how to identify and charge accordingly based on the value of that company or business or person that is coming to you. So you got to know how to play that value-based game. And so we talk about the design of business and the business of design. Okay. So that's a big one. We actually cover that in that class, and that's not a requirement, but I think is helpful. And we're not learning Photoshop, we're learning Illustrator, but we do cover a little bit of the Disney products. So let me show you a few more designs. Okay. And then we'll kind of share a little bit of your responses. Packaging design is also another area that I worked on, right? So at Disney, I work with food, health, beauty, pets, and dipped into toys also. And so the way it works in like 30 seconds is that Disney gives every team, designers and business people, and a bucket of money. And they say, okay, you got to multiply this money and you got to do it every 3 months and go. And if you don't, then you basically, get demoted, lose your job, hire somebody else. But that's your responsibility. Your responsibility is to grow the business. So we did a lot of business proposals and designs. We went to candy makers and candy shops. I forget the name of the candy apple shop. I think it was like something, they're still around, but it's like an apple shop. They only make candy apples. We go to them and say, hey, you have businesses in different malls. How about a Disney branded candy apple packaging? Okay. Hey, Kroger, you guys have, snacks and lunches. What if you actually like competed with, Lunchables and made your own Disney branded snack, and maybe we put some storytelling around it and made it look like an etch sketch and, and put food inside of that. Would that be a potential item? Well, maybe we will. Thank you for the concept. And then the business team would come in and run the numbers and show what the potential is and the penetration of the market and how much value they can get and how to price it. So literally, designers and businesses are working together to create a product that will get eventually bought by a big brand or client. That's how we did it. No magic, no nothing, just good old fashioned, just business and design and trying to make the numbers work. So I got to work really closely with managers that did business and salespeople, and literally just sit next to them and hear them and work with them on the business side. So I got to get that exposure, which is really cool. Hero's Choice, pet food, what does that look like for, brands like Bolt and all these characters? Again, these are all proposals. These are all concepts. These are ideas to get businesses thinking out of the box so that they can buy branded content or sell content that is branded with Disney's name, right? And so what would that look like if you sold this product? Or yes, I did Beverly Hills Chihuahua. Okay, like, you got to do everything. Okay, it's a good film. It's funny, but like we only have a picture of a Chihuahua. What can we do for PetSmart? Maybe we could do some tins. I don't know. Let's make a proposal. So, you know, things are hit, things are misses. So we looked at those areas and we tried to experiment with those brands and products. And how do you make things look classic, right? How do you make things look vintagey or classic? And, you know, typically people are very nostalgic in America. So when they look at classic things, they think expensive or high value, right? And so that's something that we have to like, that's all visual, right? And so, you know, Disney does a really great thing of taking that old content and making it fresh and new again, and making like the vintage, like almost like high value, right? And all that's done through the design. It's purely design. It's done in modern ways, but it's not classic in any way. It just looks classic. It looks nostalgic. Therefore, people gravitate towards it, right? So how do you do that? Using typography and color and what kind of art and style. And we got to know the history of the art, right? Like there are a lot of people that know Disney better than some designers. Like, hey, that art's from that's a 1930 art. That's not 1928. They don't relate. It's like, oh my gosh. All right. Like, thank you for sharing that. Like, that's a pie eye. That's not, you know, pie eyes were just from this decade. And then the, you know, then the pupil came in like the 60s and the 70s in transition. It's like, oh, like, so you really got to know history and research and build that in. Pet beds, collars, Toy Story, like you name it. We did everything, right? Onesies, you know, how do we do collections using the same art? Where do we get our ideas from? How quickly can we build the art? And, you know, and how can we get these collections developed out the door and sold, right? So time is a factor, right? You know, how can we design things quickly? How can we design things effectively? You know, time is money, they say. And, you know, really use your time in college to get your technique down so that when you go to work, you can learn to speed it up, right? You know, because some students don't have technique down until they start working, and that could be a risk because most more expensive colleges out there have students ready on their technique, and then all they got to do is practice their speed afterwards. And some colleges actually put speed and pressure at the end for their senior year and get them pushed and ready for that level. And if you don't know which school I'm talking about, we have an art school in Pasadena called the Art Center College of Design. It's like $250,000 to go there after 4 years. So there are students walking away with $200,000 of debt that learn graphic design. They're good. They can afford to be good. But what I also learned is that that they're using the same principles as anybody else. And I know because I crashed their classes, and I'll tell you all that story later. But I had professors let me go into their classes because they actually felt, hey, this information should not be locked up for the highly affluent. Like we need to do workshops and do this and that. So I actually was fortunate enough to run into teachers that did workshops for those folks that couldn't afford it, namely myself. And they say, you know what, why don't you come into my class and just watch and just look. And then this is what we do. And if you want to get a scholarship, great. But if not, this is what you should know. I got the chance to talk to these people. And I'm friends with some people that graduated from that school. And you'll be surprised how the stuff we talk about is not too different from the stuff they talk about. Okay. Namely principles, theory, money, all that. They cover that stuff. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot that video there. Okay. So yeah, so, you know, I always like showing my retail pieces. And typically I always like to show this slide, not for the pricing, but really for the customer rating on the bottom there. You know, 5 stars, right? 9 ratings. But hey, somebody took the time to actually type something and say, hey, we like this. My child likes this. This is cool. There's like some families put pictures of their kids sitting in it. I don't know them. It's cool. Like that's actually, you know, that was actually kind of fun and exciting to see people say, wow, like this thing you made and created, like this is so cool. Like I love it. And we probably will never meet each other, right? But it's nice to know that people have a nice response to the work, right? And I think that's why some designers do what they do, right? Whether it's T-shirts or stickers or whatnot, they like knowing that someone is reacting to their work and having an emotional connection to it, right? That's cool. I totally get it. I felt it, right? So people always ask that question, why did I become a teacher? Now, before I do, and I know we have a little bit more to go. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break? Does that sound good for everybody? Because I'm storytelling you guys for tonight. Let's do a quick 5-minute break, restroom break, whatever you need to do. Okay. I'm literally almost done with my presentation. We will not be going late tonight. We will probably be finishing early, just so I can leave time for questions and things of that sort and Q&A. So the first couple of days of class are going to be really smooth and slow. Okay. So, but we will talk in about 5 minutes. Is that good? We'll take a 5-minute break. And when we get back, I'm going to share a little bit how I became a teacher. And if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. I will answer those at the end. And then we go from there. Okay. All right, cool. I'm going to grab some screens here because the missus just came home. And so she's already like, cover that screen. I'm like, okay, I got to put my background up. So give me a couple seconds, guys. We'll see you guys in 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes. Okay. All right, guys, coming back in. Already implementing the screen here because now people are slowly getting ready to go to sleep. And by people, I mean 5-year-olds. So in time, you will eventually this screen will turn into a green screen, and you'll see some very cool images and backgrounds and things like that. So today, I definitely wanted to just invite you guys into my home and just get just a little bit of a feel and a flow, because one of the things we've learned in this pandemic is that literally the lines between work and home were so just like skewed that it's literally just, I kind of liken it to like someone visiting your house and like and they're your tutor, right? That's kind of how I feel how online learning is a little bit. When done well, it feels like, you know, a tutor just came by your home and you're like, all right, let's learn a little bit about what we're doing. So but eventually the screen will be green, and then have backgrounds, and then the images and the camera shots will be much more effective and clean and things like that. So but yeah, so hopefully we'll do that. And so that will be kind of like the flow a little bit. And you'll see in the coming days and weeks how that's all going to play out. Okay. All right. So let's do a little bit. Let's do a little bit about what people said, and then I'll share a little bit about why I became a teacher. How about that? So just to kind of see what people said about the class, okay, up to this point. So let's see. How are you feeling tonight? Fine. Feeling somewhat all right. Fantastic. Excited, antsy, ready. Sleepy but eager to learn. Bit tired. Just got back from in-person classes. Okay. Anxious for the future. No particular reason as to why. A bit frustrated because I'm doing all my school stuff on an old MacBook. Oh, okay. We will hopefully have some solutions there for you. Great. Good. Excited for this course. Feeling great. Awesome. Okay. Let's take a look. Who are you guys? What characteristics define you? Gamer, streamer, and rookie graphics designer using free and open source software. Cool. Tenacious, stubborn, and sympathetic. Okay, very cool. Interesting. Tenacious, stubborn, and sympathetic. So I don't know if you're stubborn or sympathetic. Okay, that's cool. That's good. All right. Strong, self-aware, trustworthy, adventurous, loving, kind. Nice. Introspective, honest, sentimental, responsible. I feel I'm very creative, strong, and slightly shy. Okay, I would agree. I'm kind of like that a little bit. Friends have called me sweet and kind, but I don't know myself. That sounds like a status update or something, but that's cool. Characteristics that define me would be eager and stubborn. Okay. I would say perseverant, creative, fun, kind of weird. All right, weird is good. Freedom to choose my path, loyal to the right people, respect all that lives and breathes. Cool. Creative, impulsive, extroverted, creative, funny, sense of humor, smart, and energetic. All right. Let's see. Something unusual that you want to do, done or want to do. This should be interesting. Okay, I want to make nice banners for streamers. Okay. I don't think that's unusual. I would assume like streamers, like YouTube streamers and things like that. So, no. That's cool. Nothing unusual about that. Learn how to better my design and 3D modeling overall. Cool. Aviation electrician. Okay, cool. I think I've never heard that one before. I have a 1963 VW Bug that I work on and take for joyrides ever so often. Oh, that sounds like fun. Okay, very cool. I can hear it being like loud, so that's cool. I had an interaction with a llama on top of Machu Picchu, and it was awesome. What? That sounds pretty amazing. Okay. Let's see. I've never done anything unusual that I wait, what is this? I've never done anything unusual, but I would like to own a raccoon. Okay. Very cool. Something unusual that I want to eat a hot dog with chili cheese fries put on top. I don't think that's unusual. What is it? There's a really good hot dog joint in LA. Oh, I forget the name, but they basically put everything on top of it. So if you know it, let me know. But it's in LA. It's like they put everything on top of your hot dog, which is amazing. I want to do as many thrilling things as I can before I die. Okay. Be part of a helicopter rig and crane pick. Okay. I woke up one day and decided to drive to San Francisco. Cool. Okay. Driving a car and go traveling to Berlin sometime around in June 2037. That's very specific. Okay, that's awesome. Probably on the Autobahn, it sounds like, right? Yeah, that's fun. Been to Germany. It's a very cool spot. Okay, let's do some humor. What is the funniest your funniest Facebook or Instagram status that you've posted? Never used either platform. Okay, I feel old. Okay, I don't really post on either. Tiger King post. Okay, me always spilling drinks happens often. Okay. I cannot actually stand Facebook statuses. Okay, cool. I think the funniest was when I said I posted on my Instagram story saying that I would overthrow the government with my own two hands when Adobe Flash Player went down. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was not a fun time when that Flash Player went down. I don't really post things anymore. I just swipe for endless memes. Cool. I never really posted a status. Okay, not a big social media person. Use it to keep in touch with some people. Falling while stage diving. That's funny. Okay, hopefully it wasn't too damaging. And I posted Wayne Cartoon Universe series drawing of McDonald's in Brazil on Facebook. Okay. Cool. That's very specific. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about why did you take this class? Want to learn more about graphic design. Okay, we'll definitely mention that. Thought this class would be interesting to help me develop more of my digital art, for sure. It's interesting. Okay, sharpen my graphic design skills so I can design some art of my own. So yes, it is for the very new designer. Develop my artistic skills and hopefully discover a new passion. Cool. There, I think you're taking that the right first step. For my major in graphic design and to hopefully better my small business. Cool. We definitely talked about having a value-based business. So that's something we definitely cover in the class. I like to improve my skills on digital art and it's part of my major. Cool. Enjoy expressing myself or something else through design. I did 2 years of graphic design in high school. Okay, cool. So that's good. You'll have a lot of skills hopefully coming in and probably brushing up on a few other ones. I'm majoring in graphic design to become efficient in digital design, interested in creating cool stuff because I want to try something new on computer software. Okay. All right. Well, before I continue, we'll talk a little bit about moving forward there and about what brought me to teaching. And then we'll kind of share a little bit about how you learn from a teacher. But let's talk a little bit about why I became a teacher. Okay. People always say this, hey man, this is great, professor, awesome. But what are you doing here, man? Like why are you a teacher to begin with? Well, I don't know if you've seen this presentation, but this is a video by Sir Ken Robinson, and it's titled Why Schools Kill Creativity, Public Schools. Okay, I'll just kind of impromptu it, but basically, the idea is that if you think about the status of the world today, a few years ago, even today, there are two things that are always the big issue, the big question: how do we educate you guys, young people, for the 21st century? But we don't know what tomorrow looks like, right? That's one big problem. We can't really see the futures, but how do we prepare you for the future? The other problem or challenge is like, how do we respect everyone's cultural identity, their unique diversity and background, and fit them in the global narrative, like the global economy, I guess you could say. There's been different theories. Some of those theories that you typically see in the past is that, well, we will educate people. And normally the story was back in the days that if you worked hard, do well in school, go to college, you'll get a job. And we kind of know that that's not a guarantee anymore, right? No one's guaranteed a job after college, and not even after a bachelor's and sometimes even a master's degree can you get a job. Okay, so schools turn around and say, okay, well, let's up the standards. Let's increase the standards, raise the expectations on education. And I'm not against that, right? Like expectations should always be high on every student, no matter where they come from. But we still, before you raise expectations, we really got to look and ask the question, what is traditional education? Like if you look at it from a first principle standpoint, right? What is education? Well, it is an old system from the 18th, 19th century, and it focused on enlightenment or intellectual capacity, right? It was designed for the Industrial Revolution, right? Factories and whatnot back then, turn of the century. And before that, people got trained by churches, Jesuits, right? No one could believe or wanted to believe that you can take taxpayers' money and educate a person, right? They always thought that you had to have a status or a certain background of high stature to be educated. Back then, people could not believe that you can take tax money and educate the poor, right? But we proved it, right? We were able to use taxpayers' money and basically educate everyone through public education. But the mindset, the model of what education was, or the definition of those times, still is based on an intellectual model of the mind. That model is still outdated, right? This model of I have to reason deductively, I have to read Shakespeare and the classics, academic, as they call it, ability. But what happens is that when we started teaching students academics, right, we started to see a shift in students that felt they were non-academic, right? I don't know the literature. Don't know, the math as well, or things like that, right? So therefore, I'm not academic. I am non-academic or not smart, right? Meanwhile, public education is still focusing on economics, training people for the economy, and getting people intellectually, known on the classics, right? It still is based on those two pillars. Okay. Now, fast forward, 100 years, right? In America, in the 90s, we started to see this epidemic, okay, where we started to notice more cases of attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Okay, I don't want to say or say that ADHD is not a real thing. It's real, but there was a crazy large number of cases in like the 90s into the 2000s, right? And it's still a bit of a debate even to this day, right? ADD, ADHD, and whatnot. But what was the prescription, right? We gave students that were prescribed, we gave students pills basically that were diagnosed with ADHD, and we said, okay, we're going to shut off your senses, basically walk as these zombies. And while you're sort of anesthetized, we're going to, sit you down in a chair and sit you in front of a board. Meanwhile, you have computers, iPhones, advertising, hundreds of channels available to you, stimulating you, yet we still are sitting in front of a classroom with a board and want you to learn boring stuff, right? It's completely crazy, right? And all of a sudden, ADHD cases go up, like, they're fidgety, they can't sit still. No, and meanwhile, standardized testing goes up. No, like students are being distracted, right? Like there's more engagement and stimulation ever in the human history. And education has not shifted or is just beginning to kind of shift in that direction within the last 20 something years, right? Beginning to. As you go further east in the world, you still notice kids getting diagnosed, and you end up in Washington at some point, and basically everyone has a case or an issue, right? But this narrative of ADHD or having so many cases of students with ADHD is not a good thing. And students have suffered more so in the arts and sciences. So we'll zoom in on the arts, right? As victims of this mentality. If you think about art in general, what is art? It is an aesthetic experience, right? Aesthetic means that all your senses are activated. Your eyes, sound, your ears, sight, smell, you're there, you're engaged, right? It's like being in a live show, live performance, live music, that sort of thing, right? You're fully alive. But anesthetic is the opposite, right? We shut off your senses and deaden what is happening around you, right? Much like what we're doing to students in ADHD, right? We were getting students by an education, traditional education, by anesthetizing them. That's not the way you should do it. We got to do the opposite. We got to wake students up. We got to wake you guys up. And let's just look at just traditional models like schools as factories, right? If you look at your classic school, the one I grew up in, most of these schools have a building set up in different locations, right? Buildings with subjects. This is the math building, science building, facilities building. They're all separated by subjects, much like a factory. And not only that, there's bells. No one works with bells anymore, right? Except in factories. And why is it? I find it curious that the year of graduation is like a date of manufacture. Why is the year you graduate considered the most important thing, the most valuable thing about who you are? This date of manufacture, as they call it, right? Why is the date of graduation so important? we should be focusing on things that are more important than data manufacture, which is like, well, do you work better during the day? Do you work better at night? Right? Are you interested in education, period, right? We should be looking at things not from a testing point of view, but more from an engagement point of view, right? But something strange happening, right? Like tests still go up, teachers still giving tests, and we should be going the opposite direction, but we're not, right? Let's talk about divergent thinking, okay? Divergent thinking is not the same as creativity. It's basically creativity is defined as ideas that have value, right? Divergent thinking is the stuff that led to the creativity, right? Divergent thinking is basically, I could think of many different solutions to a problem, right? It's not one thing. I have like a bunch of different ideas to solve the problem, right? That's divergent thinking. That's a skill, right? That's an ability that fuels creativity. Lateral thinking is very linear. Like you do step 1, 2, and 3, and you get the end result, right? Now, here's an interesting experiment that happened with students that are in education. They gave them a study or a test called the COD example, which is basically a paperclip, and you say, how many things can you do with a paperclip? Most people guessed 10 to 15, and people that were really good with it guessed like 200 different things. And they normally said things like, well, if the rubber band was made of this or that, if you made the rubber band super big, and if it was this and that. They came up with like 200 different ideas. Now, interesting discovery. They gave this test to a group of people and that scored a genius level. Who do you think scored genius levels at this COD example? Over 200 different examples. Anyone want to take a guess or type it in? Which group scored genius levels on this, if you had to take a wild guess? Anyone? Kindergartners. Kindergartners scored genius levels on this. Okay. And not only that, this study was a longitudinal study, meaning they tracked them in every 5 years. And then they made an interesting discovery. Every 5 years, what do you think happened to that score? Did it go up or did it go down? Yeah, you're right. It went down. These children became educated. Okay. So, what does this mean, right? We are literally educating the creativity out of people, right? We're not giving opportunities. We all have the capacity, right? Like we've proven that we're all born with this capacity to be divergent thinkers and come up with so many different solutions, right? So why are we getting mad if students are working together to find the answer in the back of a book? Some people call that cheating. I call that collaboration, right? A 21st century skill. Right? You guys are working together to find the answer to a problem. That should be valued. I mean, I don't promote plagiarism, but you kind of came together to solve a problem. That's a 21st century skill. That's valuable, right? So when we think about education, right, we really have to look at the whole gene pool, the DNA of education, and look at it as not so much academic, but human capacity differently as a whole. It's not about abstract, theoretical, academic, non-academic. That thing is a lie. It's a myth. Okay. We work better in groups. Okay. Cool things happen when we come together as a community. We grow through collaboration when we work together. Right. And we should not put you guys in glasses and isolate you and put you at this weird disjunction. We really need to look at education and look at this whole habit of institutions and rethink it from the ground up. Right. So when people say, why are you teaching? I look at this whole system, the whole design of it, and I say, no way, bro. That's not how my 5-year-old is going to get educated, because you guys are probably here because you had some aspect of this happen to you. Okay. Creativity and technology are not separate identities. Okay. These things are enhancing intelligence, right? There's talk about artificial intelligence. We should be talking about augmenting intelligence. The tool should make you better, not replace you, right? And so we learn about that stuff, right? I am a big believer in that, right? I really think that if we take the human side of things and plug it into the technology side, right, interesting things happen, right? If we amplify humanity, using our tools and our creativity, we get some interesting things. But there are some barriers, right? great book about fear. Why are people afraid when they create art? What does that come from? This was very therapeutic for me, right? Observations on the Perils and Rewards of Art Making by David Bales and Ted Orlando. This is a great book. This really taught me that the psychology of creating and why we're so like shy when we share, because the short answer is that you're giving you're being vulnerable to others, and that's super risky, right? People don't understand that. We do, right? There are principles of design. There's some pretty universal ones, right? That kind of span throughout test and time, right? These principles are everywhere. They're natural. They're in the natural world, right? Design is beyond a technical thing. It goes into this sort of universal, sort of like metaphysical thing, right? So there's something there that's worth exploring that needs to be looked at on a deeper level. But it does start with essentials in this class, right? I would call this class an essentials class, an essentials to digital illustration, essentials to graphic design, where we go as deep as you want to go. But we start from very basics. We assume that you know nothing, and then we go up from there, okay? So that's kind of the starting point, okay? And you might actually fill in a gap of information, but whatever the gaps are, I think we're gonna have an awesome semester regardless, okay? And it's gonna be really cool, it's gonna be really amazing, okay? If I had to summarize it, I like to design lives and potentials for people's future than things. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but a thing that lasts 6 months or a year on a shelf is not as fulfilling as designing or helping someone design a career, a life, or a business that will potentially change their entire family tree. That's a lot more interesting and a lot more exciting to me, to be honest. So if I can give you all this stuff I've learned, 20 something years, and put it in your shoulders and you run with it, I know that everything, all the drama and all the things I went through was not at a loss. Does that make sense? So I still design, I like designing, but I think I like teaching better than I do design. And I think that with everything going on in the world today, we really need people to think like designers to solve more of the world's problems. I think we need more of those thinkers than not. So if you're not going into design and you're just dipping into this class, I'm excited for you, because these are ways to solve problems in your fields that can potentially impact others in those fields further on, right? So there's a lot of potential here, but that's why I do what I do. And yeah, it's going to be a really cool semester. And let's just kind of take a look at some of the projects that you guys were looking forward to in the class. And then we'll kind of open it up a little bit to Q&A, questions or remarks, things like that. Projects, what type of projects would you like to create? Logos, designs for clothing, brand, and website. Yes, we do cover that. One of the projects in the class is a t-shirt design. We will learn about how to design t-shirts. I give you some Disney art, and you're actually going to trace a Mickey. You're actually going to draw a production-ready piece of art of a Mickey graphic, and then you're going to take that Mickey graphic and design a t-shirt out of it. So literally, like, I'm going to walk you through that process of how to make production-ready work and design a product out of that. Create projects that can be used in business settings. I think we've kind of covered that. There's a lot of things that can be used for business, logos and whatnot. Something amazing, something with amazing lighting, full art scenarios. Probably the movie posters. We'll create a movie poster which can come into landscaping. And so color is a big factor, and then that could bring in some lighting into that as well. And we will be watching films. You get to watch 3 short films and design a poster for it. It's our minimalist poster project. So I saw someone that's into minimalist art. If you're into minimalist art, we do that project in this class. So we actually like start learning about minimalism a little bit here. Logo designs, posters, we do, yeah. Free art projects where I can do what I want. Ooh, good question. You will have freedom to design however way you want, but if there's something that you would like to create, we might have an opportunity to talk, okay? Unique and inspirational. Hopefully there's some things that you heard that will be unique for you and inspiring. Posters and prints. Yes, movie posters and prints. We talked trailer posters of Wayne Country Universe stories. I don't know. Well, we might get to that point in a logo perspective, but for posters, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more further if we like to. And yeah, I learn most when a teacher is engaging, teacher is relatable, upbeat and energized, elaborates on important details, interacts with the class, makes it fun, visual teaching, demonstrates how to do technical things, knows about graphic design. I hope that I hit those things tonight right out the gate, with the exception of like showing the, well, I showed you my design. So hopefully you got a little bit of that, and you got a little bit of the feeling and the vibe that I do like what I do. So yeah, this is not your traditional class. I've heard students say like, you are not like any of these other teachers that I've seen at Rio. I take pride in that. So so let's run with it, okay? And let's have a really awesome semester. It's gonna fly by really quick, but we're gonna have some cool stuff happen this year, right? We're, Halloween, Thanksgiving, right? We're gonna live through all that together as a class. So it should be fun and it should be really exciting as there. Okay. All right. Do you have any questions or comments so far in the class? I know there's a lot of questions about course and content, so we'll cover that briefly. But I think some of you have a question. Yes, Mr. Wang, is it Laker?
Oh, yes, it's like a Wang.
Okay, let me go ahead and close my deck so I can hear you and raise the volume. Okay, yes, question, sir.
So what is wet?
What is what again?
Wet.
Oh, wait, on my screen or?
I remember you told us earlier, like I just don't get it.
Web design or WET, like Tom there?
WET.
Well, I'm not sure, but if there's a specific thing or a comment, then, or if anyone has a little bit more, then we'll cover it. But no, nothing. We cover, most logo designs, poster designs, right? Nothing wet that I mentioned. So I'm a little confused, but if you have more details, feel free, and we'll kind of go from there.
I think it was after, so it's the wet. It's kind of confused with web, so it's WET. So.
Well, web design.
After printing.
Yeah, no. In the class, if you heard wet, maybe you heard me say web design, or or web design, the internet, right? I mentioned a few things, but we don't cover it in depth into the class. So but we will be covering print related material from a very beginner standpoint, and we build from there. So we'll scaffold the learning as we go. Okay. Did I answer that question for you by any chance? Okay. Okay, hopefully I did. All right. Any other comments or questions? You can type it in the chat there, guys. So feel free. But definitely a lot of things going on there. After school video, make it vegan. I have no idea where I was in that comment, but it could be an after school video. I don't know, potentially. Okay, let's kind of cover a little bit of the Canvas system. How about that? And why don't we kind of call it early? I think we'll finish up at about 9 o'clock and just kind of go from there, because I know I've been talking a lot and everything of that sort. Okay. Let's kind of cover the Canvas system for a minute. Has anyone got a chance to log into their Canvas system, which is our online portal, and gotten to take a look at some things, right? If you have, great. That's awesome. We'll take a look at it. Does anyone not know what the Canvas system is? And if you don't know, maybe you can give me like a little red X emoji, so we can kind of maybe briefly talk about that and see what that is, or you can mention it. Okay, everyone knows that system. Well, the Canvas system is basically obviously where we're going to post all the assignments every week, and we do meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, okay, from 6:30 to 9:45, okay? Now, a couple of things. I normally go in class until I try to be done actually by about more closer to 9:30. I know we go to about 9:45, but typically, and my style is that I like to kind of finish class a little bit closer to 9:30, only because, you know, even though it's 15 minutes, I do like to cover most of the content at the beginning of the class, okay? So it's, we will be generally done closer to 9:30, maybe even a little earlier, depending, okay? So if that works for you, then great, because I know that we have people that are working, we have, you know, families, we have things that we're doing. So I'm a big believer in like getting things done early, on time, and then maybe even finishing up a little bit early too. So I'm totally cool with that. So we'll do that. The Canvas system, and we'll kind of break it down a little bit more. But basically, the Canvas system is only has the orientation information right now. Okay, so the Zoom link to the class you'll always find at the top of the list. That never goes away. So you know, that's like the first question everyone asks: where's the Zoom link? Where's the Zoom link? If you go to Canvas, you will always find the Zoom link available at the very top. So that's never going to change. And it will always be there. Click onto the button, gets you in the class. Everyone's here, so I'm assuming they found the button, right? So that's helpful. Click here, join, done, right? So it's very easy. You'll be surprised how many classes I've seen don't even do that. So it's like something so simple. The other thing that we have here is obviously the syllabus. And so we'll talk a little bit about the syllabus, I would say closer to Thursday. But you can definitely go over it. We'll go over it as a class, of course, and email information is here. Basically, I work really well with email. So if there's a question that you have, shoot me an email. It goes directly to my cell phone. And so if I don't get back to you, I normally, if I don't get back to you within the first hour, I will definitely get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. But you know, obviously don't email me at 3 o'clock in the morning saying you can't sleep or anything, because I will be asleep. So, but yeah, so basically you have that information there. You can always email me. We'll go over course objectives on Thursday, grading criteria, things of that sort. So you can read that, of course, and policies. But basically, if you agree to that, there's a link on the top that says click here to sign your syllabus, and then you basically type your name saying I agree to that. So that's kind of like our digital signature saying like we adhere to the syllabus, and we'll go over that a little bit more on Thursday because I know I did a lot of talking. Tonight was more about the why of things than anything, right? Who am I and why do I do what I do? Adobe Creative Cloud installation. Okay, so big question. So so I gave you this before your emails were approved in the system. So I got an email literally a few hours ago that said that student emails were added on for the fall semester on Adobe Creative Cloud. So if before today you were having issues, then by hopefully starting tomorrow, you should be able to gain access with your Rio Hondo email. Okay. Normally I roll out the installation later, but students were like, no, maybe you should really do this early so we can figure out our computer stuff. So I listened to that feedback and I said, absolutely. So we'll be going over that a little bit on Thursday. But like I said, we will not be going into the installation of the Adobe Illustrator stuff for a minute, only because we're going to be talking about mindset. So we're going to be talking about the financials. We're going to talk about the habits. There are more things that we're walking away with this pandemic with than any other year I've taught. So we're probably gonna need to talk about that, right? We're probably gonna need to talk about like what bad habits you guys formulated during the pandemic, right? Cookies like every hour, right? Going like gaming till 4 in the morning, right? Like we're probably gonna need to walk away from these things, right? Or not do that as often, right? So right there you go, Alexa. So we're gonna need to sleep, people, and so we're gonna, because the science says we're gonna need to sleep to build better learning opportunities, right? So there's some things we need to talk about, right? And we'll talk about habits and how that all operates. So I do understand that there are some things we're walking in with that we need to kind of like clear out, okay? So that's literally like the first couple of weeks of class. But in the meantime, if you want to try to install, go for it. Like I would say, give it 24 hours because the email from Adobe verifying that your emails were installed came through. So I would say by tomorrow, we should be able to do installations, and you might have to reset it, follow the instructions, reset it, and basically log in again and be free. Okay. So you don't have to pay for this program. Okay. you get it free, okay? You get Adobe Creative Cloud, the whole thing for free for 20 weeks. And then what normally the school does is that at the end of the semester, like in December, or late December, early January, they pull the plug and they say, okay, you're done with the class, and you have to reinstall it again if you take Photoshop next semester or in the fall. Does that make sense? So so it's free, but there will be kind of like moments between semesters where it will get shut down and reinstalled, and we have to repeat this process. So that reboot happened today. So by tomorrow, you should be able to make the install, okay? Everyone's got a computer and everyone's got different ones. So the hope is that you got a current computer that can handle the program. If you have old versions of Illustrator or Photoshop, I would say when you install the new one, the program will ask you, do you want to uninstall the other stuff? Well, if you're okay with uninstalling it, go for it. But again, it's going to go away in December. So if that's your free hack version that I should not know about, then keep it and then add the 2021 version, this year's version on top of it, and stick with it, right? I mean, I did it at one point, right? In college, I had hacks. And so don't touch it, don't delete it. That's my free stuff. If you have a free version, then you might want to stick with that free version. And if you don't have one and are looking for some free alternatives, I do share free alternatives to Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop when the class ends. So there's some free stuff out there that you can stick with that you don't have to pay money on, that do exist and are actually as good as Illustrator, believe it or not. So I think it's called Inkscape is one of them. So it's really good. Okay, we have a video, of course, how this class works. But on the back end, if I had to show you pretty much my student view, this class is already pre-programmed. So week 1, designer therapy, they're ready to go. Week 2, designer therapy, pricing. I call it designer therapy, the unit. Pricing a client. Week 3 or 4, principles of design. Week 5, getting to know Adobe Illustrator. Week 7, 6, 7, mastering the pen tool. Week 8, spring. No, we don't have spring break. I have to modify that because that's from spring. T-shirt graphics, production ready files, minimalist poster design, logo design, final portfolio. Everything's ready to go, right? And so we're ready, I'm ready, you're ready, and we're ready to fly. At the end of every session, I will post a video recording of this of our conversations, right? So the sessions are recorded and get loaded. It's not an excuse not to show up though, right? These are really for emergencies, right? To review information and content. Again, I'm super interactive, so I do look for people, right? And students that have tried to do this on their own without going onto the class or even meeting don't do very well, right? And so, you know, don't be in that position. I would say if in a week or two you're like, man, this is too much, or my work schedule is not allowing for it, my recommendation is to consider possibly retaking the class next semester, in the spring, right? Possibly maybe in the summer if it's offered, but think about that, right? I won't get mad. There's no judgment, right? Everyone's got a different life, and yeah, there's some people out there that are gonna overcommit, right? And they're gonna be like, I can do it all. And it's like you're working full-time and taking classes full-time, maybe even part-time. That might not work, guys. You know, if you're taking school full-time, you should be working part-time, right? But again, everyone's situation is different. So, you know, if you want to sit down and talk about it, I'm more than welcome. We can talk about it. That's totally fine. Or if you have a counselor or counseling contact, then we can talk about that as well. Okay. I will talk on Thursday. I mentioned your counselor too. We do have an art counselor that answers questions. We saw a lot of students that there are some of you guys that have never spoken to a counselor ever during the pandemic. I get that. And so one of my jobs, it will be to connect you or reconnect you with your counselor. We do have an art counselor here in the arts department, in performing arts, right? And or theater and performing arts or digital art. And so that counselor is there to help you answer your questions. There are some students that don't even know Irene. Her name is Irene Vu. They don't know her email. They don't know anything. So my job is to connect you with your counselor so you can ask those questions and figure out how to get this class passed, if you should take it, when you should take it, and if you're possibly even if you're working or doing too much, right? So she is a great resource, and we're going to reconnect you to those people. At the end of the day, you want to advocate for yourself. Okay. Everyone should walk away basically kind of having that sense of like, treat college like shopping for clothes, if that makes sense. Like, you're not going to pick out just anything, right? And you're not going to buy from just anywhere. And if it doesn't fit, you're going to do something about it and replace the thing you bought, right? So you're going to have to look at your college experience in that same way, right? You're investing. Some of you guys are paying for this. If you're doing the free stuff, great, take advantage of it. But you always want to look at it as like, you're the buyer and I'm the vendor, right? And if something doesn't work, speak up, right? It's not like high school. This is so different from high school. If something doesn't work, you really want to speak up and advocate for yourself, because the pandemic has really disconnected people, and just the ways that we normally catch students when they're trending, in some uncharted territory with their grades are lowering, or they're failing a class. Some of them kind of get missed by those early interventions. So we want to make sure that you're kind of pushing, you're talking, you're advocating for yourself. Okay. So you got to push it. You got to take it to the next level, and you got to speak up if something's not working. Okay. On all levels. So my job is to reconnect you, make sure that you're getting contacts with the right people, and obviously making sure that you pass this class, but also making sure that you know where to go after you're done with the class. Okay. So those are just a couple of things there. We'll keep it very light. Again, I would say the first thing is to read the syllabus, take a look at Adobe Cloud installation this week, and we will meet again on Thursday at 6:30. Okay, so 6:30 Thursday is our next time, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I'm missing, but we should have everything set and ready to rock and roll, guys. So we will connect again. We'll talk about all the Canvas materials and things of that sort on Thursday, but we will basically see everyone on Thursday at 6:30 in the evening. Okay, sound good? All right, guys. Well then, thank you for participating. I'm going to stick around for just a few minutes in case there's any comments, questions, concerns, add codes, things like that anyone needs to do, or just want to say hi. But feel free, and we'll set you up. Okay. All right, guys, I will officially dismiss you, and we'll see you on Thursday, and I'll stick around if you have any questions. Okay. All right.
Okay,
Catch you
I'll
then.
see you on Thursday. Bye.
All right, Laker. We'll see you then. Have a good
Bye.
night.